Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken M. Sitting across from me this week is the intern himself, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
And folks, we're really kind of struggling for something to talk about. I mean, really, it's a quiet weekend.
Yeah, there's not much going on.
Nothing's happening.
No.
So I think we're going to take a recess and call it one. Thanks for listening to the ODPH. We'll see you next time. And you know we're absolutely kidding. The biggest movie of the year is about to drop.
Yeah, just a bit.
You can tell we're very excited. Folks, this is a very special edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We are talking Marvel Studios. We are talking Avengers Infinity War. One thing we won't do, because we actually want you to truly enjoy this film, we're not talking spoilers about the film.
I have successfully dodged any and all spoilers.
I have too. I've heard rumors. In fact, unfortunately, if I go on the wrong social media site, even if I'm not looking for something, I've seen a couple things pop up. I don't believe it. So thus, we're going to make a point here on the show. We usually talk spoilers in a recap. The movie hasn't come out yet. Depending on where you are in the world, it may have, it may not have by the time you hear the show. But we are going to just keep it to strictly predictions for Infinity Wars, what we want to see out of it. But we got a recap about Marvel 10 years.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, no spoilers here, folks. Just recap and just talking about how amazing it is in this day and age that a comic book company such as Marvel, arguably the number one in the game.
Arguably, yeah.
You can argue that in DC, depending on where your preference is. But just for the fact that for where they started to create the juggernaut that is the MCU and how far it reaches.
Well, I think you can go even further out from being a comic book movie and being a set of movies in the same universe that take place in mostly sequential order. There's a couple of blips here and there where they're not in order, but each one is connected. Now, obviously, you have movies like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and whatnot that it's in the same universe, but that's all one story. That's all one timeline. This is all, yeah, it's the same universe. Yeah, it's the same timeline, but it's not the same story. It's not one continuous story. You don't pick up a comic and read, you know, Iron Man's origin story and then jump to Thor's origin story in sequential order. It's just not how it works. So for them to take these movies, put them in the same universe in some sort of order that makes sense and pull it off for 10 years when there are a lot of instances that this would never work. I remember when the ads were on TV for Iron Man, and I was thinking, who's going to want to see Iron Man?
Yeah, because at the time, you have to realize this. Marvel was coming out of bankruptcy. The 90s was a very weird time in comics for Marvel.
Yeah.
And I mean, pretty much the industry as well, because, I mean, Image was born then, and the tone of the books coming out really shifted.
Right.
The traditional superhero universe was kind of, I don't want to say murky, but it was going through phases.
Yep.
Some things really worked. Others really did not. So when Marvel obviously was, you know, threatening about bankruptcy and they were selling their movie properties, characters went to different studios.
Yep.
So obviously, if you have different pieces with different owners, it doesn't mesh well with the overall vision. So obviously, when Spider-Man came out, that was a huge film.
Oh, that was massive.
Yeah, the first one with Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man was massive, huge.
Yeah, loved it.
Long overdue, because I remember there was rumored it was supposed to have been James Cameron directing, or he had an interest in it, and then it just went away, and wound up going in Sam Raimi's hands, who did a phenomenal job with 1 and 2.
Well, if I remember, getting back to your James Cameron point, I think I read something online the other day that he actually got as far as writing a script or some ideas down.
Yeah, he had an idea that was working its way to fruition.
It was. I've read some details, and I won't get into details because some of them are just weird and out there and just whoa. But yeah, it was out there. Put it to you that way.
Yeah, it was out there, but that's like we say, when it's a different director and a different vision for a character, you're going to have some stuff that hits like that. I mean, if you really want to go to it, look at the flip side with DC and the rumored Nicolas Cage
Oh Lord.
Superman movie.
Oh Lord. Look, if you don't know what we're talking about, look it up.
Yeah, just do it on your own time. We are not covering that anytime soon on this show.
No.
But getting back to Marvel, so obviously Spider-Man was a huge success, and then going forward, you really kind of open the door that, a classic character can be made into a superhero. So when Marvel decided to go do their own film with Iron Man, at the time, Iron Man was not a high-profile character. It was for hardcore Marvel readers.
Right.
He was. But when you talk to your casual fan, he's not up there in the echelon of Superman,
No.
Batman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man. Captain America was ranking higher
Yeah.
and still does. But for me, when they put it to screen and they did the perfect casting of Robert Downey Jr. As Tony Stark, a lot of expectations were hit and exceeded.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the time, you don't know what you're going to get. This could have been one of the biggest train wrecks going.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Because if you take a look at the history of certain Marvel projects, there's a lot of TV-made movies that were really left field.
Yep.
You have some stuff that just wasn't working. So at the time, going big budget, going with Iron Man, who really had a good following in the comics. I mean, he's a longtime hero of the MCU, the comic version, that is. So making him your franchise character, I mean, that was really a gutsy move.
Right, and I remember back to that time, I was not all that much into comics at the time. I mean, sure, I enjoyed Superman, I enjoyed Batman and whatnot, but I remember when Iron Man came out, I didn't see it when it first came. I wasn't jumping on the gun first night it came out. I don't think I saw it with my brother until the very end of it, almost the end of its run. And I remember going to see it distinctly. I think he made the suggestion, like, hey, I hear good things about Iron Man. Let's go see Iron Man. And I had nothing going that night. I was like, yeah, sure. Why don't we go see it? And I will always remember seeing this movie for the very specific reason that we got to see them. We went to see the movie, enjoyed it, loved it. I knew the only thing I really knew about Iron Man was what was on the animated series back in the 90s. That was about as far as my knowledge of Iron Man went.
Yeah, that was...
and the funny part is of course you have the famous end scene where Nick Fury shows up and tells him about the Avengers initiative, and this was back when some theaters were still going on traditional film and they weren't digital, and the theater my brother and I saw it in was still doing that. They were still going on traditional film. So we're in the middle of this scene, which it's clearly something top secret, clearly something big, and Nick Fury's standing there and the film burned halfway through.
Wow.
And my brother and I are sitting there going, wait, is this part of the movie or is this like the actual thing burned? And it straight up just burned. And we're sitting, like, it was him, myself, and I think like 3 other people in the theater at this point. Because it was, like I said, end of the run. And the film just burns, and we're like, wait, was that supposed to happen?
That's got to be absolutely crazy, because I can't even imagine that happening. Especially, like, for me, I've been such a long-time comic reader, I would have probably lost my mind on that.
No, yeah, because I remember we were everyone in the theater was kind of sitting there for maybe a solid 2-3 minutes, and we got up, and we're like, oh, I guess that's it. And we went out, and I went to I'm like, well, I should at least go tell somebody at the counter, because I'm not sure if that was supposed to happen or not. And I go to the service counter, and I go, hey, the end of Iron Man, there's a scene with a guy by the name of Nick Fury. Is the film supposed to burn out? Like, you're not supposed to see it? And they go, what? I go, yeah, we got to the end of the credits. They went to show a scene with Iron Man and this guy named Nick Fury, and the film burned. And they just went tearing off as fast as I've ever seen someone run to get to the projection room.
That is a crazy story. I mean, the first time when I saw Iron Man, as Johnny Moose alluded to on our wrestling show, which you can listen to if you go check our archives, I went with about 18, 20 people.
Holy moly.
Yeah, we went deep to the old midnight showings when they used to have those at the theaters. So to go see it, and a majority of us are huge comic book fans, so the expectations are high. Downey Jr. just delivered. And I've never been a big Iron Man guy. I understood, his place in the MCU. And I was kind of like, okay, yeah, this might be cool. And obviously they've tried doing a few cartoons, and the cartoons are hit and miss. Yeah. Depending on how you want to take those. So when he nailed it, it was something. And the one thing I liked about it is it was a modern retelling of his origin. Because, I mean, you figure he was created in the 60s. A lot different time period.
Oh, yeah.
And they did combine elements of the Ultimates universe, which is Marvel's rebirth, I guess, their original one.
Yeah.
When they tried getting new readers into classic characters by retelling their origins and their stories in modern time. Yeah, which it was great. I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man, just read that run if you really want to.
So good.
Yeah, you want a classic retelling with new elements mixed in? Perfect.
Yes.
So when we get to Iron Man, and then Nick Fury comes out as Samuel L. Jackson, which is different than the comics, you know that they're kind of leaning towards the Ultimates universe, which is a great thing to do. And then when they go, we're setting up for Avengers, it's like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, they have this mapped out. Little did I know at the time of how deep and intricate this is all developed.
Right, and here's the even funnier story. I didn't see Thor or Captain America in theaters.
Really?
No, I saw Iron Man when it came out, didn't see the Hulk movie, didn't see Thor, didn't see Captain America. Just I had no interest. I wasn't that big into the comic stuff at the time. But I understood when Avengers was getting ready to come out how big it was and how much, because at that point Twitter was a thing, Facebook was a thing. So I understood how big it was, and I was going to school up in Plattsburgh, New York. And a friend of mine convinced me to go with him. I was like, all right, is there anything that I need to know with this? Because realistically, I haven't seen a Marvel movie since Iron Man 2. And he gave me he's like, all right, here, because at that point it was relatively easy to recap what had been going on. And he gave me the rundown. I was like, all right, cool. And I ended up going and getting hooked on him after that movie.
Yeah, and that's the way it happens because Marvel did such a great job with it.
Yeah.
And their casting, for the most part, has been perfect.
Oh, yeah, insanely.
Yeah, I mean, especially, and the cool thing that they did, which we find out later, is they signed actors for multiple film deals.
Which is smart.
Yeah, which was brilliant because you have characters and actors that don't extend themselves past one movie or two, or if they really want to do trilogies and then some.
I'll say the one that sticks out in my mind prior to Marvel doing it was the Harry Potter series. You had Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, and Emma Watson, Harry, Ron, and Hermione were only signed on for 3 movies. It was kind of up in the air after the 3rd movie. Are they going to come back? But they ended up signing for the rest of the series.
Yeah, because that's what you want to have, especially with Marvel, that they really wanted to expand this, and they knew how big this could be.
And you look at what the movies have done, by and large, it feels like they've almost modeled the comic characters after them.
Yeah, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. After it's all been said and done, Marvel has transitioned from a comic book company into a movie company that makes comics, while DC is still a comic book company that makes movies.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with either of those statements.
Absolutely not.
Because at the end of the day, they're still doing great work, but you can definitely see where Marvel really shifted the focus of their books towards the movie's reactions.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, you would think along the way maybe it would start to lose some steam. It'd still be popular, but the fervor at which people are going nuts for these movies had died down, and you'd still have your core audience. But it's the train that keeps on going and building steam. I mean, look at the numbers Black Panther did when that came out. You would think that for a movie franchise that's been going for almost 10 years that it would start to lose some steam, but Black Panther proved, if anything, it's got more than enough steam to keep going.
Well, the one thing that Marvel has done for the most part, I mean, and we'll get to this in the next segment too, is when Marvel has a great character with a great story and great acting, it's a perfect combination.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look at Ant-Man.
Well, yeah, because I think that's the biggest success story of them all.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you really want to talk to comic fans, go to a shop and go, hey, who's your top 5 superheroes? Nobody is saying Ant-Man.
I'll give you a better one. Go to a casual movie fan, somebody who doesn't read the comic books but still knows who the characters are and can understand some stuff, and give them like the basic layman's, Cliff Notes version. Hey, you want to go watch a movie about a superhero who can shrink? I guarantee you their response is going to be, no, why?
No, because especially at you trying to sell a casual fan of going, hey, his superpowers is he talks to ants.
Yeah.
And he can shrink. Really is kind of a tough sell, but Marvel made it happen.
Yeah.
Which is just really crazy to think about. But as they've shown, they had a plan. They stuck to it. They've really made the point of driving the Avengers as the main franchise. Now, obviously, X-Men rights have been at Fox Studios for years now. So they really can't dabble in that being the main franchise as it was in the comics during that time period. So they really focus on making the Avengers the best book they could or best movies they could, and it just trickled down to their books too.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, it was a perfect storm for everything. But if you take a look back for where they started with Iron Man and then even the Incredible Hulk movie, the last one that came out, which, I mean, I don't want to say they've retconned, but they really kind of steered away from it.
Yeah.
Just the only thing is about there is a quick tie into Captain America if you really look on the director's cut, and just building in towards his involvement in the MCU when as it progresses, and then when you go to Thor and Captain America, when they have their solo movies, to really introduce audiences to who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Thor, I wasn't a huge fan of.
It's all right.
But Thor as a character, unless it's written very well, like its current run with Jason Aaron writing, it's very tough to write him because
Right.
I call it like the Superman complex, because
Yep.
you have a character that's so powerful and so iconic that really trying to give him challenges to connect to readers it's extremely difficult.
Well, and having him as a prince of an alien race of sorts from a faraway planet who just happens to live on Earth, it's kind of hard for average Joe, average Jane to really connect with that.
Yeah. But when they pulled it off, it was like, okay, but at least with the intro of Thor and Captain America and Iron Man, you got the trinity of the Avengers.
Right.
And obviously you laid enough groundwork that when the first Avengers film came out, it was everything it was supposed to be.
It was something you never thought you'd see. It was something that if you go 10 years before the first Avengers movie came out and tell yourself, past self, hey, 10 years, you're going to have an Avengers movie where all these big Marvel superheroes team up and fight a big old battle. You'd tell yourself, what are you, nuts?
Yeah, you never would have thought this would happen. You would have thought maybe you would have had one of those core characters as the lead, and then it would have been your B-list characters.
Sure.
Just to balance out. No, Marvel had the great idea of we're going to make our A-listers or A-list characters as the team.
I'll say the first Avengers movie's got one of my favorite sequences in movie history during the Battle of New York, where it's like the one fluid shot where you go from one hero to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Anytime I rewatch Avengers, that is my favorite scene in the entire movie.
Yeah. I mean, it was just perfect. Joss Whedon did such an amazing job on the film that it still holds up to this day, no matter when you watch it. This is your basis of what you want to do with a team film.
Mm-hmm. It really says something about a movie because there have been movies where cities get destroyed in massive amounts. This was the first movie that I can remember that the city got destroyed and people were doing calculations for how much it would actually cost.
Well, yeah, because it was so detailed.
Oh, yeah.
And just at the point that this event trickled down into their television shows.
Oh, yeah.
And their other medias, because Marvel was very smart that had the events of Avengers trickle into their other properties.
Uh-huh.
Because at this point, success has given them more opportunities to go and develop other characters, i.e., Daredevil and the Netflix characters. Because at the time, Daredevil had a very lukewarm reception when they did the movie with Ben Affleck.
Yep.
And there are good parts to it and there are bad parts to it.
Director's cut's better.
Yeah. But at that point, that just goes to show that when it was, ill-received and they decided to come back as a Netflix series, look at what happened. And they tied it right in. I mean, they didn't go overwhelmingly with it.
No.
Albeit the only series that really did, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1 prior to Captain America 2 episode.
Yeah.
Every episode. That's my one knock against that. And, and I will tell fans, if you really want to start watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., just jump in the Captain America 2 episode of Season 1 and just go from there.
Oh, yeah.
The other episodes are good to watch if you want some backstory, but man, for me, it was just kind of like a little long in the tooth that
I would do the episode right before the Captain America 2 movie came out and then go from there because you get the build up and then it's kind of like you're going at the start of a roller coaster. You get the build up and then you got the big first drop.
Yeah, but you think about this too, though. The success of Avengers caused a show about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
Who would have thought it would have worked and it would still be going to this day?
I didn't.
I honestly didn't. I mean, I was very intrigued by the idea.
I was happy to see more Clark Gregg.
Yeah, anytime you got more Clark Gregg is always a good thing. Yeah. And just to see the evolution of the characters, because now this is the show I've been wanting for 5 years. It didn't really start out that way with Season 1.
Oh, no.
But they have now right the ship, and I can't wait to see how it ends up for Season 5, and then we go Season 6, hopefully. Still haven't gotten official confirmation, but all signs are pointing to yes. But just going back to the moral of the point, the impact of this franchise has been astonishing to watch as a fan, but it's been a blueprint for other characters or other comic companies to try having their characters involved in.
Well, so yeah, you look at DC. DC's doing that with their franchise. I mean, I believe it's Universal is doing that with the monster movies. I mean, Godzilla and King Kong, for those who don't know, same universe.
Yeah. And if you can do that, I mean, it just shows it can work if it's done right.
Yeah.
Now, Marvel is very intense about theirs because every character is they haven't really swapped out actors.
No.
They have in a couple cases.
Outside circumstances.
Yeah, War Machine is one. Don Cheadle took over the role for Terrence Howard.
Yep.
And I'm blanking on another one, but beside the point, they really have stuck to the core characters.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Ed Norton and Mark Ruffalo as Hulk. They've really stuck to the core characters. So when you're cast as a Marvel character, you are that character.
Oh, yeah.
And whatever form of media you wind up on, you're that character, which is great because you don't have to worry about recasting and you get really kind of confused on who they are. You know who that character is. I mean, you could say it's typecasting in some certain aspects.
Sure.
But honestly, if the character and the acting and the quality of work is there, who cares? Honestly. And then looking at how it's just trickled down, Avengers has grown into a huge event, which allowed for a Guardians of the Galaxy movie to be made, which if you asked any casual fan, they've been like, what?
Yeah. Why?
But even you ask me, I've read the one in the 90s, the original team, not the one that was the reboot that they've modeled the movie after. So to hear they're doing Guardians was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
How? And they pulled it off. It's one of their better franchises.
Oh, I'd say so.
Yeah, it's just established itself. And then just going away that each character now has kind of had their own, at least 3 movies by now. Iron Man, Thor, Captain America.
Yep.
Guardians is getting theirs next year or 2 years.
It's within the next 2 years or so.
And you hear Ant-Man is now getting a sequel. Doctor Strange has now been made into a movie, which was long rumored. And I haven't heard official confirmation of a sequel, but I would say it's a safe bet it's going to happen.
Nothing's been officially announced or confirmed, at least to my knowledge. They're being very coy and quiet about what they've got. Other than what's already announced, they're being very coy.
Yeah, I think the only other one that hasn't been officially announced, but we all know it's coming, is Black Panther 2.
Oh, well, they basically all but said that one's coming. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it's just a matter when they have everything all set up perfect for it, which, they can take their time on. They're going to just
I think it's greenlit for a sequel. It's just they have to figure out when.
Yeah, because I think a lot of it has to deal with the new deals that are coming in with it.
Right.
But getting back to the point we're trying to make with this, the MCU has established that you can have characters involved in the same universe and you can make it work.
Yeah.
And this is what fans want to see. The numbers are in the box office ticket sales. So you can't say that, this doesn't work.
No.
This is why DC has tried it. Is it worked in some areas? Maybe.
Certain areas.
You can argue. But overall, this is now given a blueprint for studios and comic companies to work together to get a broad vision that will resonate to fans and make them come out in droves to see the movies.
Mm-hmm.
How this started just as a simple idea with Iron Man of all things, amazing just to see how it play out. And just now it's going to get even bigger with the movie that's coming out this weekend, Avengers Infinity War.
Right, which I never in a million years would have thought when I went and saw Iron Man 1 way back in the day that it would eventually lead to a movie of this size and grandeur.
Yeah, and you definitely did not see this coming. But we're going to be talking about that in little segments down the road. But we're going to take a quick break right now. Let us know what you think of the MCU's impact this past 10 years. We want to know. Hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Fair City Fire just released their new album, Shake Your Bones, and they're going on tour to support it. They're going to be playing Ransom Steel Tavern in Appalachian, New York on April 27th at 8 p.m. This is the first single off the album, Shake Your Bones. For more information, check out faircityfire.com. Coming back for the second segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, Avengers Edition, I guess we could call it.
Yeah.
I know it's wordy, but hey, we make it happen. So, Pat, I guess the question is you. 10 years, Marvel movies, What is the best one and what is the worst one in your opinion?
You posed this question to me before just so I could get some prep time, because as you know me and as anyone knows me, I have a hard time ranking these movies simply because they're all so great, and usually I get asked the question right after I've seen one. So I had to do a little bit of thinking about this one. And I'd have to say my favorite one is probably Captain America: The Winter Soldier, simply because to me, I am a James Bond fan. I've seen, I think, almost all of the James Bond movies with the exception of maybe one or two. This one to me feels like if you were to take Captain America out of it, you could insert whichever James Bond actor you prefer, and it could be a James Bond movie where you've got the super soldier, or in this, you've got the main character who's a agency man, works for an agency, willing to do anything for that agency. And, in this case, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. In James Bond's case, it's MI6. And then you could have, in James Bond's case, it could be Spectre infiltrates MI6 and takes it down from the inside. I mean, this really plays out like a James Bond movie.
It absolutely does. I have to agree with you on this. I think this one was probably the most authentic to the comic story. Ed Brubaker's run on Captain America is one of the best ones. Mm-hmm. If you have the time, go buy all the back issues and trade paperbacks. It is up there with Mark Waid's and Mark Renwald's. There is so much awesomeness about Cap. Because especially, he's kind of gone through his ups and downs with his writing. But Brubaker's run definitely made it like a James Bond film, all right.
Oh, yeah. And you look at just the way they portrayed the Winter Soldier, played by, I just had his name in my head, I'm blanking on it, Sebastian Stan. Played by Sebastian Stan. Just you think back to the scene where Nick Fury's getting attacked by the quote unquote police, and his car's flipped upside down, bullet holes in it, glass shattered, on fire if I'm not mistaken, and the camera's out of focus, and he's looking through the windshield, and it comes in focus, and you just see the Winter Soldier. You see Bucky walking towards him, and I remember sitting in the theater thinking, oh, at that moment, because they genuinely made him as a villain to be feared.
The craziest thing about the comic is, if you know your history of comic book deaths, Bucky Barnes was one of the most longest. We're not bringing him back any which way, shape, or form. Died stopping it was some villain that was going to make something, a bomb explosion. Yeah. Man, to be honest with you, I can't even do it justice. I'm going to butcher the heck out of it.
And I think the other reason that Winter Soldier is so incredible, for those who don't know, the reason that Cap can't pick up Thor's hammer is in this movie.
Yes.
Because for those who don't know, those who haven't seen that crazy thing fans discovered, it's in the Winter Soldier that when Black Widow and Captain America are in the bunker where he was first training back in the first Avenger, he finds out that Bucky killed Tony's parents, and he keeps that information from Tony. And in of course, then you have Age of Ultron, which takes place before Civil War, and in Age of Ultron, Cap goes to pick up the hammer, and he can't pick up the hammer, but he almost can, because he's hiding a truth from Iron Man. And of course, it comes out later. I didn't realize that until couple of months ago, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, that was one element they brought back, because like I said, when Bucky died in the comics, because him and Cap were both on the plane, and they stopped it from destroying whatever city they were going to, Bucky was presumed dead. Cap went into the ice and was suspended animation.
Yep.
So the fact that when they decided to bring Bucky back, that was just like, what the heck are you doing? Because it was just unheard of at the time. That's like saying you're bringing Uncle Ben back for Spider-Man.
Right.
There's certain characters that have stayed dead because it just adds to the character.
Yeah.
Cap has always had that guilt of Bucky throughout his years. So obviously when they brought him back, and let alone made him a secret agent that had been brainwashed and just a complete 180 of the character, and really gave an element to Captain America that honestly hasn't been there. I mean, when you talk about his main villains, I mean, there's the Red Skull, Baron Zemo, and then it drops off.
Yeah.
I mean, now they're adding more to it, which, I mean, it just goes to show you the quality of work when a good writer takes over, it just makes it amazing. And Brubaker's run is just so spot on. But to do this and make Bucky, the redeeming hero, because obviously now with how the movie plays out, and he gets his brainwashing, he's almost reprogrammed or everything's wiped out, and he now has not a clean slate, but he has a new lease on life.
Yeah.
And he has to kind of make good for his past. it just adds to such a layer of a character that honestly was kind of a throwaway sidekick at the
Well,
time.
and it adds a layer that Cap trusts him, and there's a couple of people associated with him that trust him. But by and large, there's those who know him and know his history, know his past, that they're going to keep one eye on him because until he's really, really proves himself, there's always going to be that thought in the back of their mind: when's he going to turn?
Yeah, and it just follows. And going back to the movie now, it so follows the story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's minor tweaks here and there because
Sure.
for the movie, but honestly, I think it's the most authentic storytelling to film that I've seen. Maybe out of any movie that I've seen comic to go to film. It's arguable.
And those hand fighting sequences in the movie are just incredible.
Oh, but everything about it is so spot on. I mean, Robert Redford's in it.
Yep.
I mean, his portrayal. I don't even want to see. I'm trying not to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. But if you really want to see the crowning jewel thus far of the MCU, that's got to be up there.
Well, it's like there's also a little bit of humor mixed in. There's the one line I remember when Robert Redford's speaking to the World Council and Nick Fury shows up and he goes, "Oh, your office is only 40 floors away, and this is what it takes for you to come see me." And Nick Fury claps back, "Oh, that nuclear war would do it too."
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show you just how like the perfect element of writing just makes the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have great acting, but if the script isn't there,
Yeah.
And like I said, it follows it to the letter.
Yeah.
So that being said, I mean, I agree with you. That's the best film. Black Panther is up there too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, because when you have a great hero and you actually have a great villain to balance him out, it makes for a perfect movie almost.
Oh yeah. The light to the dark, the yin to the yang. It's shown in not just comic book movies, but movies in general. If you have a good villain, it works perfectly with your hero.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting to see when Black Panther has their sequel if Michael B. Jordan's character is coming back. Mm-hmm. I think he is.
Oh yeah.
I don't know exactly how yet, but I think he is.
No, everybody thought Agent Coulson was dead after he took the scepter to the heart, but they brought him back.
And that was one of the wilder things too of how they brought him back.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty much the rallying point for the Avengers in the film.
Right, and I remember you and I, when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was going on and dealing with his whole how did he come back, I know you and I were thinking LMD.
Yeah, I still even argue that to this day.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. I want but obviously you got to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to really figure that mystery out, and then some. So that being said, I agree with you. That's probably the best Marvel movie to date.
Yep.
What do you think is, I don't want to say the worst, but what do you think is like on the bottom of the list?
The Incredible Hulk.
Really?
Yeah. It's just I don't know what it is. It's just I watched it on TV one time when I was going away to school, and I don't know whether it was just the weird way they edited it, where every scene change and every shot change was like a comic book transition, or whatever it was. It doesn't sit with me.
Are you meaning the Ang Lee version, or are you meaning the Ed Norton version?
Ed Norton.
Okay, just want to make sure, because the Ang Lee directed movie, I could not get into at all. I cannot watch it to this day. It didn't connect with me as a comic book fan or a Hulk fan.
Like I knew who Hulk was. Obviously, there were video games about him in the 2000s that I know my brother had at least one of them. So I knew who the character was. He'd shown up in a couple animated series, so I knew. Everybody knows who the Hulk is. It just, to me, like, I wasn't expecting like a Godzilla like movie where he just runs around and smashes the whole time. But it's just, for some reason, the story just didn't connect.
Well, it's another thing with the Hulk too. It's if he's not written well,
You're right.
it doesn't really connect. I mean, I had no problem with Ed Norton playing Bruce Banner.
I had no issue with Ed Norton. It's just again, this goes to not having a good story. You can have the best actor or actress in the world. If the story's absolute crap, there's only so much they can do with it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't mind it as bad. I mean, the one I kind of struggle with, I guess, the most is Thor: The Dark World, which I hear a lot of flack from fellow friends and listeners of the show, actually, about it. I just, for some reason, that just did not connect with me.
It's okay. I enjoyed it when I saw it. Again, was going away to school. A friend took me to see it as a birthday gift. I enjoyed it for what it was. It was nice to see Thor's team, meet up again and deal with another side of the, Norse universe or mystic universe or whatever you want to call it. So it was cool to see that. The villain was all right, but it wasn't anything I'd write home about.
No, it was one of those. I thought it was an upgrade from Thor.
Yeah,
the first one in certain aspects, because I think you really need to drive home of, he's an Asgardian prince, but he's also a warrior, devil may care attitude, so to speak,
Yeah.
and just not afraid to throw the hammer at the drop of a dime. So obviously you need to have your battles be a little more epic. I mean, granted, he faced the Destroyer in the first one, I believe.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one for the first movie,
Right.
I think.
That's kind of like a middle of the movie, early quarter of the movie type villain.
Yeah, because I mean
that's almost one of like you use that villain to introduce your main villain.
Yeah, and I kind of just sat there and I was like, I really don't. I mean, the first one I was like, okay, well, it's a threat. It definitely is, and I know, who he is. But as far as Thor villains, I mean, Loki is up there, and after that, I mean, he doesn't really have a great rogues gallery.
Well, and I got to say, the ending of Thor: The Dark World did have one of the best cliffhanger, oh my gosh moments when Thor's talking to what he presumes to be Odin, and he walks away, and the camera cuts across the scepter staff Odin's holding, excuse me, and it transforms to reveal that it's not Odin, it's Loki.
Yeah, which at the time, I mean, that's their best villain they've had in the MCU.
Right.
At that time.
It was one of those moments that you just got through this however long movie it is, this hour and 12, this 112-minute movie, and you're like, wait a minute, where's Odin? Is he dead? Is he off someplace? Which, I mean, you find out later, but still, at the time, it was one of those holy crap moments.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I mean, I think Malekith was the main villain of that.
Yeah, Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, I don't want to say like throwaway, but it was kind of like, I really didn't remember his presence that much in the comics. I mean, Loki is pretty much the driving force behind Thor, as his main villain. It's just kind of like when they cast him, he casted the character, I was like, okay, we'll see how this pans out.
Yeah, from what I remember, because the most recent animated series of Avengers run that I watched, pretty much you'd have the Destroyer show up at least once or twice, but Loki was kind of the main Thor villain that would show up and cause havoc.
Yeah, so I mean, moving forward with Thor, I don't know if they're planning on doing a fourth one, even though they did Ragnarok, which was a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
The only issue I've had, and I know I've addressed this on the show a few times, is the amount of humor. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'm seeing a shift a little bit, that it kind of feels more like a Disney movie instead of a Marvel movie.
Right.
And I see this happen with Guardians of the Galaxy and even Ant-Man to a degree, even though I think it worked for Ant-Man in his favor doing that.
Guardians of the Galaxy, I would kind of, quote-unquote, write off a bit as it's the way they're portraying Peter Quill. He's the happy-go-lucky, carefree, cracking jokes, type of guy. Mm-hmm. To me, with the humor with Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't feel so maybe forced as it might with some other movies, because it's just the way Peter Quill is.
Yeah, and I get that. For me, it just kind of seems like there's a little transition where there's just like a little too much humor for characters that really aren't known for that much humor.
Right.
And like I say, Thor is not exactly a wisecracking.
Well, yeah, it's like I understand a joke or two, and I understand they might have I forget the character's name. He was the rock guy in the Gladiator arena.
Oh, yeah, one of the Warbound.
Well, yeah, he's your comedic relief, but yeah, there were times that I have to agree with you there, and I rewatched it recently. Comedy's a little much.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it doesn't hurt the film. Like,
No.
I think if you're going there to be entertained, yeah, it is. Like I say, I don't remember Thor being just so wisecracking and joking. I'm not saying Deadpool level by any means.
Say Thor in the cartoons in the animated series is to a degree, but it's not like every other sentence. It's it's like when they're fighting, he might crack a joke, but it's not every other sentence.
But it's more like fish out of water humor.
Right.
Like he's talking about like fighting in Asgard to characters that have never been there, and they're looking at him like, what are you talking about?
Right.
So, I mean, I get that aspect, but like I say, I think it's just more that Chris Hemsworth's comedic timing has now been exposed to the world. I mean, if you watch even Ghostbusters, National Lampoon's Vacation, there's countless other times. He is extremely funny.
Right.
So I could understand you want to implement a lot of that in his role. I get that. But I guess for me, just being old school, and it's just how I am about it, I don't really get it as much. Like, I'm not like, oh, yeah, he's supposed to be the funny one. It doesn't resonate as much, but not saying it's a bad thing either.
Let me ask you this. Which one has surprised you the most?
Surprised me? Ant-Man.
Okay.
To just further extend the point, Ant-Man, the fact that was, one, entertaining, and two, as successful as it was, is mind-boggling to me.
Right.
Because not only, like, if you follow the history of the character, they didn't go with the first Ant-Man, which is Hank Pym. They went with Scott Lang, who more or less is forgettable.
Right.
And they gave him a great story with Paul Rudd acting, which, I mean, when I first heard it, I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be Marvel's first flop.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly thought that. I was like, this is not going to work. And they made it work.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the Disney element, I guess, to it, I think really saved it.
Right.
Because it's very hard to take a hero seriously when you're shrinking ants and growing them to giant size.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you look at Thor and Captain America and Iron Man and
look at the joke Family Guy does with Aquaman.
Perfect example.
They, for those who haven't seen it, there's a joke. I think it's in one of the fairly early seasons of Family Guy where there's this girl getting attacked on a beach and Aquaman's the only one nearby to save her. And she's like, "Oh, help me, help me, help me." He's like, "Oh, I can't. You gotta come a little closer to the water."
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is it's when you have a character that's very, I don't want to say one-dimensional because I don't think Aquaman has ever gotten his really just due except for the Jeff Johns run, and the current run I believe is going on right now. Bry Guy Signal always talks about that. You need to have the right, angle and the right direction for the character to really make it work. And like I said, with Ant-Man, I just was like, okay, how the heck are they going to pull this off?
Sure.
And they made it work, which was really puzzling because I didn't see it happening. No, and like the fact that we're going to get a sequel to it, that's even more weird for me. I'm happy for it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I'm in a day and age that we have an Ant-Man sequel.
Well, and Paul Rudd pulls it off flawlessly, I would say. I mean, you look at the scene in Civil War where, Cap's getting his team together at the airport in Berlin, I think it is, or wherever it is. And Hawkeye shows up and he opens the creepy van door, and there he is sitting there, laying there asleep in the middle of the van. He goes, what? Where are we?
Yeah, but he plays it well. I mean, that's what Ant-Man should be the comic relief of the team and still be I don't want to say a heavy hitter because I don't think it does justice. But I think that where it worked for him in comparison to other characters, I mean, they just nailed it.
Yeah.
I guess I just say for one character I thought was going to be underwhelming was like Mickey Rourke's Whiplash.
Yeah.
Which that was already disposable, and for Iron Man 2, I mean, that's kind of around there for my disappointing bad films too.
Yeah, it's towards the bottom for me.
Yeah, there's some good, but not enough to really I don't think I've rewatched it since the first time
No,
I've seen
I mean it's on TV. I know it was on TV a couple years ago, and I might catch a couple scenes of it, but it wasn't one that I saw it was on TV, I'm stopping what I'm doing to watch it.
And Marvel's been pretty spot on with their stuff. I mean, I can only imagine a couple that have not really been home runs out of the park.
Yeah.
Inhumans.
Yeah.
Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Iron Fist was kind of a letdown. I mean, you can go back and forth about this one, but I guess in the comparisons of everything.
I mean, for me, biggest surprise, I'd say it's a close tie between, I'd say, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy and Ant-Man, because I simply didn't know anything about either character. It's like Thor, okay, I've heard of Thor. Captain America, know who he is. Iron Man, heard of him. Who the heck is it? I think I remember asking you, who is Ant-Man and what are his powers? And you told me, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Really? And I know Guardians I knew nothing about other than you were telling me it's set in space. I was like, okay, I can get behind that.
And especially because at the time it was rebooted.
Right.
See, in the 90s they had a very run that was similar to the Avengers at that time.
Sure.
Because they're set in the 30th century, they're very far away. So when they decided to do the reboot with the current lineup they had, it was kind of like, how the heck is this going to work?
Mm-hmm.
But they made it work.
Yep.
Food for thought. That's what we have for our good, bad, and surprising for the MCU films, but we want to know what you think. Hashtag ODPHEE. We're going to take a quick break, close this segment out, talking a little Infinity War with you here on the ODPH.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Closing out this special edition of the ODPHEE Avengers recap, Marvel 10 years of the MCU. I don't care how you want to define it. It is an iconic show with an iconic movie coming out.
Mm-hmm. I am very much looking forward to this as well. I am all sorts of amped up.
I'm amped. I mean, like I said, we were kidding about the beginning of the show of nothing going on this weekend because
Absolutely.
this movie is the movie for 2018.
This movie is the movie for 2018, and just for a bit of reference, it is going to make a stupid amount of money. The current record holder for opening weekend is Star Wars The Force Awakens, which was at $247 million and change. I'm the Star Wars guy. You want to doubt me, look it up. This movie is in projections to get close, if not beat it, because the thing I read the other day, it is having the second widest opening domestic movie of all time. It is opening in a little over, small number, 4,400 theaters. And if this tells you anything, a buddy of mine lives out in L.A. He's the same guy I know. I've told people that, he got his ticket for tonight and he was trying to get one a couple days later. He's had to wait like a week and a half before he could get another ticket. His local IMAX added a showing for 2:15 in the morning.
I believe it.
Which to me is insane.
Well, if you think about this, the MCU, as we've talked about all show, has been the benchmark for comic book movie franchises. I mean, even sci-fi fantasy franchises.
I'd say movie franchises, period.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue it because, everybody's going to say, well, what about Star Wars? What about Star Trek? Yeah, I mean, there's a great argument to be had.
It's a modern benchmark.
Yeah, it's a modern benchmark. It's a great one to have if you really want to get into a discussion about it. Maybe we'll do it for a future episode. Let us know. Hashtag ODPHEE. But if you think about it, this has been building since they've just gone on their different phases. I mean, usually when Avengers comes out, it's the end of one phase and the beginning of another one.
Right.
So obviously, this has now been building where you have Spider-Man now back in the fold in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
The Guardians of the Galaxy has been established as, a major player in the MCU, which is so weird to say.
Right.
But you have that. You have your Avengers now set up. You did a version of the Civil War comic story, which depends on what side of the fence you're on, what you thought of it. I mean, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was very good. I mean, there's certain elements I didn't like about it.
I know it wasn't everything it could have been, but that's simply because of rights and that whole legalese.
Yeah, because obviously Marvel doesn't have all their characters back just yet.
Yep.
Not to say it's not going to happen one day, but as we stand currently. But going into it, when Infinity Gauntlet came out way back when, it was one of the biggest events of recent memory that connected every team, every character in the MCU.
Right.
Because every time Marvel did a big company crossover, it was an event.
Oh, yeah.
And this one, I want to say at the time for the comic, it really flew under the radar because cosmic heroes really weren't at a forefront.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have prominence. I mean, obviously, when you read the Fantastic Four, that book, when it's done well, goes all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And you deal a lot with the cosmic, heroes out there and the different, planets and such. So, obviously, when Thanos was getting created and really drawn into the fold as a major threat, it was really kind of interesting to see of suddenly now, I remember seeing the book drawn by George Perez, where he's sitting there with the gauntlet and you see just the beam shooting off and there's different characters. Because honestly, at that time, I wasn't really into him.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember seeing that book and I picked it up just because I looked at the cover and the cover looked awesome. Which if you've ever read anything drawn by George Perez, the man is brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
So let alone when I read it and I'm going, wow, like what the heck is going on here? I just was immediately drawn into it like, wait, what's going on here? Because, I think Ron Lim drew the book too as well. That it had just this iconic thing where Thanos has this immense power, comes to Earth, and he's just wiping everybody away.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember there's the speech with Captain America, which I won't ruin because I think you're going to hear it tonight, which if that happens, I might mark out in the theater. I'm just going to be like, holy. And just to see how the story played out, because this is the first time in a long time you had all the characters in the MCU comic universe come together. You had the Avengers, you had the Fantastic Four, you had the X-Men, you had Spider-Man, you had the Hulk, you had the heavy hitters of heavy hitters.
So it was a who's who.
Yeah. And just to see that they had to work together and just how the whole story plays out and when Thanos accomplishes his goal in the comic and to see like the reaction and how the heroes come back and defeat him down the road, it was truly like one of those really kind of iconic moments in comics where like you read a story and you're like, okay, I get why this is an event. Obviously, if you've read the Infinity Gauntlet, you know what I'm talking about. So this really isn't a spoiler because I have no idea what they're going to do in the movie. But if you've ever read the Infinity War, the Infinity Crusade, the train goes off the tracks a little bit.
A little bit.
So I'm hoping they don't do those as movies. I'm fully banking they're doing the Infinity Gauntlet, which, like I said, the minute I saw Thanos hit the screen, I'm like, holy shoot, they're going to do this. And of all the things, they're going to do the Infinity Gauntlet, which just blew my mind.
Yeah, another funny story. I remember seeing first Avengers in theaters. Again, like I said, I was going to school up in Plattsburgh, New York with some friends. I mean, this was the night it came out. So the theater's packed, Marvel fans, comic fans. I enjoyed it. I'm sitting there watching Thanos comes on screen. The entire theater's freaking out, and I'm going, who's that?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, no idea at the time of comic hero. So I went home and Googled purple Marvel villain or something like just to figure out who the heck it was because I didn't know who it was.
Yeah, no, like I said, when I go, I usually roll about 20 deep into the movies.
Yep.
And Had knows because he goes now with me to the movies. When Thanos hit the screen, you just saw everybody just going, oh, holy, it's Thanos, Gauntlet.
Yep.
Everybody was wilding out. And just to sink in that Marvel is going to go there. Because you figure with the movies, you really aren't going to take a jump. Because the Infinity Gauntlet is a very complex story.
Say it's something you build up to. It's not exactly a thing you lead off with.
Yeah, you would never lead off with that. Like, I think the way they did Avengers 1 was the perfect way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want to say you had a disposable villain, but you kind of did.
Yeah.
And you established of what the Avengers are. And so now you've seen as they progress and, they've defeated Ultron and they've gone through their Civil War, which they're kind of still in, still not.
Yeah, I'd say they're not exactly fighting, but they're not exactly speaking either.
Yeah, but it's kind of like how it is in the comics after Civil War
Agree
happened.
to disagree.
Yeah, the Civil War is just, in the comic, was just kind of, I don't know, the ending and the post stuff after, not really my cup of java. But going into the movie now, you now have new players established like Black Panther. The Guardians of the Galaxy are established. The MCU, as it stands, is fractured.
Yeah.
So now you have this Omega level of threat coming to Earth, finally. Certain people know who he is, certain don't. What do you think is going to happen with the movie tonight?
I think
as we watch this,
I think there's going to be a widespread fallout from this movie. This isn't going to be the type of movie where, you get to the end and everything's all hunky-dory and life goes on. I think this is the Omega level event, like 9 times larger than the Chitauri showing up and destroying New York. This is going to be a massive event. There's going to be fallout from this is the proverbial rock dropping into the pond. The ripples are going to spread long and far from this. There's going to be some deaths. I'm saying deaths plural. I think there's going to be at least a couple who die. I don't know who. I'm not going to guess who. I just think there's going to be a couple heroes who die.
My thing about this is, if they're going to do the Infinity Gauntlet, they've now added characters that have came out after. How that interacts with the story, I don't know. Because if I'm not mistaken, Thanos' team, I think they're called the Black Order.
Something like that, yeah.
Are going to be featured in this.
Yep.
They have only just recently been introduced in the comic.
Right.
So I don't exactly know how that's going to work.
It's a whole X factor.
Yeah. But I think it's going to be the true telling of the heroes are defeated. I mean, the one sense I could get, and especially if you're titling something Infinity War.
Yeah.
You're not going in there, not going to have any casualties.
Right. And you think about it. You really think about it. It's been 10 years and however many movies of them, by and large, winning. Like, yeah, they've had their knockdowns. Yeah, they haven't come out exactly the way they came in. I mean, I saw an image today of Black Widow, Captain America, and Thor, what they looked like in the first Avengers movie and what they're going to look like going into tonight. You want to see some weathered veterans who've been through some stuff? Look up that photo.
Yeah, no, I agree with you because I think this is how Marvel's played it out from the beginning. I think this has been the battle plan. Is you really are going to get so emotionally invested in characters that when they get killed off, presumably, it's going to hit you.
Oh, yeah.
In one way or another. Now, whether they stay gone, that's another thing.
Right.
And I know that you can hear the story, oh, well, they're gone.
Nah,
Not exactly.
not necessarily.
If you know anything about Marvel, well, even comic books in general, there are ways to bring people back. I think we've established there is only one character that has stayed dead through the entire history of comics, and that is Uncle Ben Parker.
Uncle Ben, yep.
That is it. Spider-Man has the only one that is...
Jonathan Kent?
I'm not exactly sure because with the new 52 and Rebirth...
Yeah, that's true.
I'll be honest, I haven't been keeping track.
I don't think they brought him back.
I haven't exactly seen, but dare I say, who knows what's going to happen with Dr. Manhattan and Doomsday Clock.
True.
That
True.
That door could get wide open.
Very true.
I don't know.
That'd be a heck of a curveball.
It would be. So, but I know the new issue is not coming out for a while because they've gone bi-monthly with that. So, But tying back to Avengers, I'm expecting this to be the epic saga that it rightfully should be. I'm expecting there to be massive changes. I'm expecting to see new characters introduced. I'm expecting to see established characters fall very badly.
Oh, yeah. I've, by and large, have stayed off of all forms of social media in attempts to avoid the spoilers. Thus far, I am successful. The only thing I haven't even read reviews for this movie. That's how, because from what I understand, some reviewers are not being very coy with spoilers.
Some are not.
Yeah, so I know that some reviews have spoilers in them. But the one thing I have read is that this movie truly is a movie of a generation. It is one of those movies that, like, you look at each generation and there's a movie that stands out from that generation. From what I understand, this is the movie of our generation.
The comparison I keep hearing from talking to people that have read reviews or even some that have seen it says this is this generation's Empire Strikes Back.
Holy moly.
I know Nerdist actually did a great spoiler-free review, if you want to go check them out, that they even said the same thing too, which, I mean, it was just kind of weird to see comparisons because I've heard this from other people. I now see this in an article. I haven't read the article, but I would trust if they say spoiler-free, Nerdist is pretty top shelf about their stuff.
Oh, yeah.
IGN gave this a 9 out of 10.
Holy moly.
And I only read the number grade. I've heard minimal nitpicking about the movie.
Sure, which is to be expected.
Yeah. And I've avoided spoilers. I saw one red herring that I don't even want to address because, trust me, when we recap this next episode,
we're going to be spoiler heavy.
Oh, we're going to be spoiler heavy. And if this character winds up on my screen and it's Peter Dinklage.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to either be laughing hysterically or just like, you're bringing this character and you're wasting Peter Dinklage's talents on this character. Now, I've heard though it is not him, so I'm happy. I've actually heard that he is voicing somebody, so which is throwing a curveball because I could have had him pegged for somebody else that's involved in the Infinity Gauntlet.
Sure.
Trying to be spoiler free as much as possible about
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, just the only thing is you might hear him. So if you hear him in the movie, that's who he might be because I've heard he's going to actually be a voiceover, not an actual actor.
Okay. So
either way, you got him in the film, let alone countless others.
Yeah. I'm
expecting to see the status quo change. And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it plays out going into the next film. Because obviously, if Thanos wins, and I'm assuming he's going to if you follow the Infinity Gauntlet story, what happens after, that's going to be really telling because now the MCU, the only films, and I know we've discussed this on previous episodes, the only ones we know are coming out are Ant-Man and Wasp in July, I believe.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, November.
Yep, in that ballpark.
Around there. Dates are always tended to change.
Yep.
And Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which is due in 2020.
You're going to get something else sooner.
What's that?
Avengers 4.
Oh, next year, right?
In May 3rd, 2019.
So
you're not going to have to wait long to see the what happens after Infinity War.
Because I guess my question then becomes, okay.
Well, and the other thing is, this isn't spoilers. This was done in an interview. Kevin Feige said they are skipping Hall H Comic-Con this year. They will be having a 10-year anniversary panel, but they won't be having their usual panel where like they show off trailers and stuff that never make it onto the internet except for crappy cell phone camera footage and announce their movies and such. They're not doing that this year. They're holding off any future announcements for Phase 4 until next year.
And that's telling.
And that's telling because it's after Avengers 4.
Well, Yeah, well, no, this will be before Avengers 4. This is after Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about this, some serious stuff is going to go down in this movie.
Yeah, this isn't going to be we're sitting at shawarma eating afterwards.
No, but if Marvel is ducking any promotion,
Uh-huh.
especially you have Captain Marvel come out. See, I figured they would do something for that. But if they're ducking that.
And let's be clear, this isn't the first time they've done this. They did it in 2015. And their reasoning for that was, well, we've already announced everything we're going to be coming out with. Why do we need to do a panel?
Yeah, but if they're being so coy about it, that
they got something up their sleeve.
They got something coming. Maybe they're waiting on the Fox deal to be finalized.
Maybe.
Or they're going to announce something else during that 10-year thing. They're going to give just a blurb out, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean...
I like how they're being coy. For those who can't tell, I've got a big old smile on my face.
Yeah, which if you're going to San Diego Comic-Con... you should be in for a treat and definitely get down to the 10-year panel because that's going to be something.
Because you got to figure 10-year panel, they're going to bring out everybody.
I think, you're going to see a good mix of, characters long forgotten and that, I think it'll be very interesting to see how they run that panel.
Which, I mean, that's the thing I'm also, side note, looking forward to with Infinity War is I'm hoping that some threads from past movie that might have been left unanswered, might have been left to the wind for, maybe we'll, at the time you're watching, maybe we'll get that answered in a future film. I would love to see some threads from past films get tied up and closed up. And it doesn't have to be a whole thing. It can be just a mention or, a quick scene or quick shot. I would love to see that because that pays off for the fans having gone and watched these movies for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see something out of this. I mean, from all the hype, it doesn't look like it can fail.
No.
And I just want to see some epic battles. I want to see, I don't want to see any character get killed off, but if it makes sense for the story,
yeah,
sure. I'm my prediction. Like I said, I haven't read anything. I'm fully predicting Captain America and Iron Man are both gone.
I'm betting Captain America, or not Captain America, excuse me, Iron Man goes.
See, but my fear, and I have not read this, I have not seen this anywhere. It had better not be Skrulls, and they had better not be setting this up as Secret Invasion. I will be pissed if this turns out like, we just killed off Captain America, and he's a Skrull.
Mm-hmm.
Like something weird like that they're, really building up for.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't want to see the story get cheapened.
Right.
That's my big fear with this is, because you can always retcon it. He was never the real Captain America. Or,
right.
Whatever.
Well, I look at the quality of work the Russo brothers had done in the past with, Winter Soldier, Civil War, and to be seen this. I don't think they'll cheapen it.
I hope not. I mean, that's my big thing. I want to go in there and I want to see, the story as accurate as you can make it to the essence of the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's an iconic story.
Oh, yeah.
So as long as they don't drop the ball with that and they do some major stuff and it's not like a weird ending that, I don't want to see like a Walking Dead season finale with Negan going eeny, meeny, miny, mo and like left hanging.
Right.
I don't want to see that. I don't mind having like a cliffhanger ending.
Well, it's funny you say that. There was an article, I saw Robert Kirkman quote tweeted an article where they said they liked the Walking Dead cliffhanger ending and they'd like to do their own. And Robert Kirkman quote tweeted it and goes, "No,
oh, don't do that. Oh my God, no, I didn't even see that.
They would like. No, they didn't say they did do it. It says they'd like to do it at some point.
No,
not being spoilers because they said they'd like to.
Yeah, I know, but if that happens, but now it's going to be telling too because as we're going to be wrapping up the show here with Infinity War. The status quo changes for the MCU everywhere.
Massively.
They have other projects coming out, and if everything's all connected, like Luke Cage coming to Netflix, Cloak and Dagger coming to Freeform, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if it's renewed, which all signs are pointing to yes, and Agents is really tied into it.
Oh, yeah.
Albeit, though, I don't know how they're going to tie this episode they're doing this week into Infinity War.
Yeah, I don't know.
There hasn't been any like rumored connection.
Well, there's been some hints at it though because they keep talking about a threat coming.
Maybe, but is it Thanos? I mean, if it is, it would make sense because Agents does a very good job of trying to stay relevant to the movies coming out.
Sure.
Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
No.
But what I want to see out of this movie is the same thing I think everybody wants to see. I want to see it live up to the hype and exceed it. I want to go in there going like, this movie is the benchmark now.
Yeah.
That this is what Winter Soldier is going to get surpassed by. This is what Black Panther is going to get surpassed by. This level is going to be when you talk to comic book fans or even casual fans, you talk a comic book movie, you go Infinity War is number one.
Mm-hmm.
Will it happen?
We'll see.
We'll see. But we want to know what you think. As always, we try keeping this spoiler-free as much as possible. Next week, we're recapping. We got a lot to talk about next week.
Oh, yeah.
So, for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Infinity War. Let's go see it together, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.